Grand Rising. Grand Rising. Hope everyone's doing well this Tuesday Rising. Hopefully everyone is doing well. Free. No sellout. Bones. How y'all doing?
TMH, doing well. How are you?
Thomas, how you doing?
Really?
Great.
We doing this already?
No complaints over here.
Okay.
Grand Rising, everyone.
Peace, y'all.
Grand rising to the chat and all the listeners. Hope everyone having a very, very great rising.
Yes. This is yeah. That's all I got to say about that right now. Let's get them ones up so we can know that everybody's is heard. Make sure we can hear everybody. Make sure the music's not too loud. So forth and so on. Alright, so it's time for the roll call. Grand Rising Chad Murdoch. Grand Rising David Corey. Grand Rising Marlon P. Grand Rising Dat Boy Wig. Grand Rising Ladarian Woods. Grand Rising Oak Cliff. Grand Rising Brittany Davis. Grand Rising Enrique. Grand Rising Jaguar. Peace, bro. Hope all is well. Let's see where we at. Grand Rising no sellout.
He gets one this rising.
Grand Rising free. See you here.
I get one too. Grand Rising to the best chat ever.
That's
ever,
right.
ever.
The best chat ever. Grand Rising Jay Susquehanna, just in case I missed you. Grand Rising to the new subscribers. Grand Rising to those that are just relaxing and receiving the information and hoping that you are helping your community. Grand Rising Copper Chopper 803. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Hopefully everyone's doing really well. This is going to be a hard hat day again. So hopefully everybody has their hard hats and safety equipment with them.
Not only that, you have to be ready to dig. We have some digging to do. And your hard hats that have the lights on the front, those are the ones we need today, just to be specific.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and do this public service announcement. And then we're going to go ahead and get it in. So, Jaguar said, y'all got to cut some heads. Jaguar, I'm scared to even ask what that means, bro. We'll talk about that later. Jay Susquehanna says he's driving and listening. All right, bro. So, this episode of Cab Grand Rising Show, where black slaves of the 1600s European royalty of Swarthy and Tawney hue, is brought to you by Autochthonous Assembly. Autochthonous Assembly is where the real work gets done, because Autochthonous Assembly is a gathering of the minds that do the work. So for many of you who are just tuning in for the first time, or who aren't really sure who we are, this information that I'm about to read can be found on our website at autochthonousassembly.com/about. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to raising up indigenous American voices by using genealogy, also known as family history, or a family tree if you will, which is the study of families and the tracing of their lineage and history. Genealogists use oral interviews, historical records, genetic analysis, and other records to obtain information about a family and to demonstrate kinship and pedigrees of its members. And our core values are the foundation of our company, and they are essential to our success and serve as a lens through which we evaluate every business decision. And those core values are, but are not limited to, integrity, which is knowing and doing what is right; respect, which is treating others the way you want to be treated; responsibility, which is embracing opportunities to contribute; and servant leadership, which is serving the common good. And for those of you who don't know about Autochthonous Assembly and what our number one mission is, Everything we do is catered towards helping you track your family, do your family tree, get back at least at a minimum 4 generations back so you can tie into your tribe, whichever tribe that is, whether it's American Indian, Native American, a House of Africa, whether it's a Black Dutch, Black Irish, whether you're part of the Huguenot family, whatever it is. It's not our goal to tell you who you are. We're not here to tell you who you are not. And we're not here to get into your personal business. What we are here to do is a help. So the reason why we do these shows this rising or every rising is to utilize this information that we discover and share to assist with you getting back to who you were and who you are, so you'll know where to go and where to start. And also we're here to help you become financially independent and put yourself, your community, and if you choose your tribe, in a financial situation to where you're not dependent on anybody, so therefore you can help your generations at least going forward seven generations. So their floor is your ceiling. So hopefully that makes sense. And I will turn it over to the panel as we get ready to set the construction area. So panel, is there anything I missed? Anybody else that needs to be greeted while I was reading?
You didn't miss anything.
Nothing I can see.
Grand Rising to Marlon P.
And I just turned off the music.
And again, relatives, remember as well, on the website in the USDA program section, it's full of individual programs that you can start accessing for your individual areas. But like we always say, it does you no good if you don't access it and use it.
And the silence is deafening. Let me turn this music back on.
Grand Rising Golden Moon. Made it right on time. Got his seat in the cab.
That's right. All right, so got the music back on for the chat. So, okay. Bones, free, help.
Shout out to Carrie Bay. Had to do that.
Carrie, big ups, Carrie. You already know.
Let me send out the warning so everybody know where we at. This is crazy. I know the chat is gonna love it, and I know there's many of the chat that have been doing this a lot longer than we have that have probably touched on this or spoken about or done videos about it. So shout out to y'all for bringing this information forward before. So hopefully we'll make it make sense and do us some justice. Here we go. Here comes the warning.
Warning, warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovels, boots required.
And you know we can't get started without this. Free, you're right. It does sound like that person is yelling bones.
I hear it every time. Can these bones live? Let's go. Let's go.
Okay, so first of all, he said he ain't doing nothing.
Kind of doing everything, but we'll save that for another conversation.
Yeah, tell me about it. I want to give a shout out to whoever owns the site of realhistory.com/world history. I've come across this site numerous times and didn't really know and appreciate what I was looking at. So if anybody knows who this individual is or who these individuals are that did the work and the research to this site, because this is the site that we're using, the link that we use. Like I said, I'm sure many of you have already seen it or have referenced it. Some of the pictures are phenomenal. The information is crazy. We we did as much as we could to vet the information to make sure it was as accurate as possible. So we're only going to touch on the things that we can, that either makes sense or sets with the timeline, or there were references that were cited. So again, but shout out to the individual who created that site, Real History, www or realhistoryw.com. So yeah, exactly, David. Real history. So where do we start, y'all? We were doing a post-production meeting, and yeah, Enrique, Real World History, www.com. We was doing a post-production meeting, and we started looking at the fact that Benjamin Franklin had lamented about all these swarthy individuals or Tawney individuals coming over, because that was what France had wanted, based off it as one of the conditions that it would appear of uniting with the English. So of course we wanted to make sure that this information was going to be validated, and what better way to do that to find out the history from the Dutch side, or from the Russian side, or from some other side dealing with the monarch, of them coming over here or sending people over here. So when I pulled that up, or I did this search on swarthy nobles, that site came up, Real History World History www.com, and it started dropping a lot of information. And so when I shared it with the panel, I don't think Bones got any sleep. So Bones, what was it that was about this information that stood out to you, bro?
It was the detail of the information, and a lot of the information and events was lining up with events that we already was talking about and timelines. They were matching dead on. Like I said, in the information, it makes a very, very, very strong point. That's why we were all working overtime, making sure that we can vet everything, make sure we don't put nothing misleading out.
All right. So is there anything in particular that stood out? Because I know that you're going to tie in some amendments to one of the questions that we had, and we'll get to that later. But outside of that,
well, mainly the fact that it talks about the melanated population of the world, and going off of what we did yesterday's Rising show, off of Benjamin Franklin's own words, it's lining up on when he spoke of the population of the world and what people were looking like. Then they come across this information, and it ties into each other.
Right. So, Free, is there anything that you want to talk about from what you had previously looked at? Because you had seen it before.
Nothing that I want to point out in advance. I think as we go, then I'd be happy to kind of point out here and there what I've gleaned or what I've discovered or what I'm able to see, and definitely looking forward to gleaning a lot from the chat and the panel as well. So this is definitely going to be a collective effort, and I'm really excited about it. Going to answer a lot of questions I think that we've had for quite some time. And again, it shows the beauty of the power of assembling together to find your truth and your answers, which makes this experience very unique, very one of a kind. So I'm excited about being a part of it.
Jay Susquehanna talks about, he said, I love to see when it all comes together. As do I, Jay, because it answers a lot of questions and puts things in perspective. And one of the things that I had to accept was that we couldn't talk about or discuss our history without looking at the world history, because everything ties in. And one of the things that it reminded me of is that Europe or the Slavic countries were the starting ground for all this quote unquote whiting out and replacing. Because as you'll see when I start reading, it talks about they're saying that these noble families, which we know are descendants from bloodlines, were basically somehow from Africa. So it's like they were trying to cover their bases on both ends. Well, if they discover that their ancestors came, well, some of their ancestors, not all, but if some of their ancestors came from the European continent, they will say those swarthy, tawny, or dark people somehow came from Africa by going into the history and rewriting it after we exiled them. Or if they say they came from that continent that we call Africa, then it'll be covered that way. So there's excuse me, there's been a concerted effort to tie us to the continent that people call Africa, whether we're coming from, whether these individuals are coming from the European continent or they're actually coming from the continent that people call Africa itself. So that was the one thing that I found intriguing. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our best to address that and try to find some information that, I guess for lack of a better term, that debunks it. Because if once we could do that, then that kills all that craziness. So that's my perspective. That's my 2 cents. So before I start reading, is there anybody got anything to say?
Make sure you got all your safety equipment on you at all times.
Yeah.
Find somebody with a ratchet.
Hard hats are a must. The bleeding heads, those come much, much, much later. And yeah, they're not ours. So moving forward.
Yeah, so again, shout out to the creators of Real History www.com or Real World History www.com. So I'm putting a link in the chat. And for those of you who have already read this and know this, if they're, feel free to chime in the chat and help everyone catch up. Because again, we're doing this and experiencing this together. There are no master teachers here on this panel, so we're learning and growing together. So with that being said, we're going to start with Black Britain. Yes, I said it. Black Brit.
Oh, yes, he did.
And it reads, there are many portraits of common blacks still in existence in Europe. For those still not convinced of the degenerate, lying nature of the Albinos, we offer their explanation for these native European blacks. They're Africans. He puts that in bold and in caps. That's right. Whenever a portrait of European black is encountered, the explanation is always it's an African. For even the dimmest reader would know that humans breed and congregate in extended family groups, tribes, and larger groups. So upon seeing a few, the question would be, where are the rest? As we all know, the best way to hide something in plain sight is to call it something else. Let me rewind that because that's important. It says, as we all know, the best way to hide something in plain sight is to call it something else. Thus, Russian General Gannibal is described as an African. So what I'll do is I'll shoot you a picture, a quick description of this Russian general. And you'll be able to see it for yourself. Of course, my screen is not acting right. There we go. So here's a picture of that Russian general. Now, the interesting thing about that is for those of you who've ever been overseas or been places, you can actually go to a lot of these museums and see a lot of these pictures. Or you could just go to places out of the way and see a lot of these pictures. But the challenge is, and the problem is most people don't leave the continent. Nevertheless, most people don't even leave their city. So we never get a chance to see any of this firsthand or close up. So for those of you who do have your passports and they updated, I would encourage you to get out and go see some of this information firsthand before they totally get rid of it.
And not just look at it, record it, document it, save it for our history, save it for our story. There's also a link in the article that leads you to a whole bunch of different pictures, but it also tells you have to vet some of them as well. Like I said, it's very deep.
Exactly. So then it goes on to read. It says, but what about Tsar Peter III? Is he an African too? And it shows a picture of a gentleman looking albino, or Melungeon, or what we would call Credo, or Matisse at best. And then there's also a link. Matter of fact, let me put this link in the chat so y'all can see it. Like I said, some of this information, many of you have already seen it. But for many of us who hadn't, it's pretty eye-opening. Then it asks us about, what about Duke Albert? So to give you different pictures or depictions of individuals who are of different hues of melanin. Grand Rising, Mr. Clean Out 954 Home CPR.
That's Trap. What it do, Trap?
Oh.
Trap.
Trap. All right. So after he shows different pictures from everybody from dark Russians to Dutch to you name it, then it goes on to read, and this part is important, and it must be something we pay attention to. It goes on to read that the lessons learned in the previously detailed degenerate habits of the albinos need to be learned well, for the material following will test your cognitive abilities. As we have seen, the albinos used the trick of declaring all blacks in Europe recently expatriated Africans to explain their lingering vestiges. This same trick is used extensively in other settings in the preceding material. Great attention must be paid to it. In the preceding pages, we demonstrated that up to the late medieval, Europe, and in this case Britain, was teeming with black nobility and commoners. Yet today, just a few hundred years later, there are none, zero native blacks in Britain. Well, we present the 2001 census results for Britain. One thing I wanted to look at and pay attention to.
It actually got 0.
Exactly. And if you think about it, it's so simple what they did and what they're doing that I'm almost ashamed to have fallen for it.
You know?
Yeah, you can't help but to feel that way after reading some of the things that we find out and then looking at where we are. You're not alone in that sentiment, trust me.
It says the albinos used the trick of declaring all blacks in Europe recently expatriated Africans to explain their lingering vestiges. Where else do they do that? They do that here. And I would imagine they do it on other continents as well, or other countries as well. Everybody's African. there is such a push for everybody to be from Africa. When even Africans or the people from the continent of Africa know we're not African. Everybody knows we're not African. But let the leaders of the world or the continents tell it we from Africa. Or it's intimated, hinted, or suggested strongly that we're from Africa. So if we look at what happened in Great Britain, right? How long will it take? And this is important. How long will it take for the United States Census to have 0 black people originating from this country?
Well, they taking off Negro in 2020.
So if this doesn't, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Isn't that the last connection between you and Indian?
Mm-hmm.
They're erasing it off the census 2020.
So if we are to listen to some pundits, some individuals, some leaders, some people in our conscious community that tell us that we are not to participate in the census, then we are literally wiping ourselves out of our own history.
Mm-hmm.
Willfully.
Isn't it interesting if you have perfect vision, you have 20/20 vision?
Mm-hmm.
When you can see clearly or see perfectly, you have 20/20 vision. And then in the year 2020 is when they try to make it virtually impossible to be able to see yourself based off of a status if you choose wrongly, or self-identification. That should jolt you. Wakey.
Go ahead, Bones.
What is it? The following year, they releasing the 1950 census in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Right after they removing Negro.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidence? Not.
Yeah, because my birth certificate reads Negro. My mother's birth certificate reads Negro. My father's birth certificate reads Negro. And my grandmother and grandfather on both sides' birth certificate reads Negro. So my mother, because she was born in 54, she's not going to be on this census. My father was born in 47. He will have just made it. He will be 3 according to the census. So I'm going to have to wait another 10 years to see what they have my mom listed as on the census.
But the funny thing, think about it. In them 10 years, I can tell you what they're going to have a listed as. Black. Because all of us who got Negro, we lose that in 2021.
Yep.
All of us who was born that got Negro on our original birth certificates, that will be replaced in 2021.
Cast into a caste system. Ooh, talking about, you know, some of their terminology that they use, that hooky spooky, that whole sense of being cast into outer darkness for all eternity. To me, that's that census, being marked as black and your lineage is black, and that's all you have. They mix it up so bad, erase stuff so bad that when you try to go back and secure your record, it's virtually impossible. Man, who wants to leave a legacy of black to their descendants? They better get out of here with that. Time is of the essence, people. Come on, we got to get this right now.
So that's something I wanted to put out there to people, because at the end of the day, we're in this system, and the United States government, for what has been proven and shown, is not it's not the enemy. They're not the ones propagating this. It's France. So people need to wake up. It's a battle of Protestants versus Catholics. So
Hold on a second.
Changing too is also they're changing them digital. So you can always still go out and get the hard paper records still in these areas, and that's what we have to make sure that we do. See, they gave us this information era where information is at your fingertips. What's the problem with that? With so much digital information, you spend so much time digitally, you're not going to actually get the physical paperwork or meeting people.
nope.
The things that really count at the end of the day. How many times you looked on the census? The digital, it'll say black, but then when you look at the actual census, it's mulatto or Negro.
Yep.
We got to make sure as we come across our relatives' records that we start downloading them. We start keeping copies of our original records. No matter what they change digitally, you always have the original records. Just a thought.
Also, too, this is something that I would encourage people to do. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm encouraging you to do this. If you choose to participate in the census, get the paper version. Fill it out. Get it notarized. Send the notarized copy back to the Census Bureau. Keep your version of the notarized copy for your family records. That way, won't nobody be able to tell your children what you were, and they won't be able to change the documentation because now it's been notarized, and now it's like it's an affidavit. It's legal and binding. For those of you who claim that y'all know the law.
And also remember, the census' most important job is for what? Allocating resources. If you don't participate, then you can't complain while your community and your neighborhood has nothing.
Facts. So, something to think about. The goal is to present this information so that we can come up with a solution, not so that we can direct your anger at a group of people or individuals, because that doesn't do anything. And they're anticipating that anyway. Oh, David Corey wanted me to repeat. For those of you who are looking to participate in the census, I would advise you to get the paper copy of the census. Fill it out. Get it notarized. Send the notarized copy to the Census Bureau. Keep the original in your personal files. Because what that does is two things. That makes the Census Bureau have to put down what you marked. Because it's an affidavit and it's signed by a public official. A notary is a public official, if you didn't know that. So it's a signed affidavit by a public official saying that this is a legal and binding document. And they have to put it down as they received it because it's notarized. They can't digitally change it. And even if they do digitally change it, your children will have the original notarized copy. So that way you get rid of the okie doke. See, there's ways to circumvent and do anything if you look for the solution. But if you focus on the problem, you'll be waiting for somebody else to do it. Copper Color Queen says, it's time to become a notary then.
That's right. But I like how she's thinking.
Exactly.
Be a part of the solution. She becomes a notary. She can notarize for so many around her. Imagine how many she can actually affect. People just start putting practical things into place. Before you know it, you have an entire revolution that getting back into your proper place of a people. But it's little hinges swing big doors, one thing at a time. And every person, every step, every contribution is important to the whole. Oh, I love this chat.
Trav said he just made his brother do that. Facts. Joe 47 says, right, and most don't get it. Going by the way they see it, we all so-called Africans, and they are different peoples. If people believe that They have some mental issues. David Corey, before there's a revolution, it needs to be a revelation. You need to become aware.
That's so true. So true.
So, again, hopefully that helps. And again, it's all about what we can do to correct this, because this plan, if you will, is a world plan, and it's cliche to say the world against us, but once we delve into this, like I said, many of you already known this, and many of you have already seen this link. So, for those of you that this is old hat, please bear with us. But for many of us who are seeing this, it makes so much sense and it puts things in its proper perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and read. And again, this is from realhistory.com, realhistorywww.com, or realworldhistorywww.com. I'll put it in the chat. Shout out to the owners of this website. So then it says, the question says, how did that happen? From here on, British history is companion to the German state's history. The Albinos in those two countries, along with Holland, acted in concert, meaning they acted together. As a reminder, the British, Germans, and Dutch are the same people. We've been talking about that for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You will find that throughout modern history, they were responsible for almost all the great atrocities committed by man. Be mindful also that the majority of the albino population of the United States is also made up of these people. I'll read that again. Be mindful also that the majority of the albino population of the United States is also made up of these people. Okay. Background.
Mm-hmm.
I know, right? Background. Throughout recorded history, black rulers have always used religion as a legitimizing agent for their rule. Wait, what?
Say that again.
Let's come again. Come again.
Throughout recorded history, black rulers have always used religion as the legitimizing agent for their rule.
Here we go again.
Coming under what authority again? This legitimizing, this agent that legitimizes what they do, giving you a power that you've never known, giving you a power that looks like them, giving you an ideology that goes against you or self, telling you about this concept of sin, and making you forget that when it really comes down to it, what really constitutes a sin? Isn't it anything that you do against yourself?
Your intent, yep.
By me throwing my power down at your feet, I'm going against myself. You can't give me a religion to have me go against my power, and then you tell me that's the authority that you're using to rule and reign over me? Oh yeah? Watch us work, because that's not how this works. They got the wrong people. They got the wrong people for this.
The priesthood gratefully accepted their role in the symbiotic relationship because they benefited from the king's largesse. Thus, when Roman Emperor Constantine established the Catholic Church and Christianity as the state religion, he had no actual interest in Christianity as such. He was looking for a unifying agent for his empire to rule. So look, these are, I'm using air quotes, black rulers, black nobility. They were using religion to legitimize their rule, because they were using it to unify people once they took control, because they had to give them something after they'd been defeated. So they brought in a religion, and this was to unify the people, a place for them to congregate, a place for them to worship, basically a place for them to become drones. Jaguar says, sound like pimping out. Yeah, I would have to agree with that one. So then it goes on to read, it says, after the invading Albinos sacked Rome and brought an end to the Western Empire in 476 AD, there followed a period, 300 years, where the Albinos marauded unchecked all over Europe. So wait a minute. 300 years, Albinos marauded unchecked all over Europe. In 1552, Italy was taken from the Goths, Germanics, by Justinian I, Emperor of the Roman Empire, ruling from Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire. The Western Roman Empire had long since vanished in favor of the Gothic kings of Italy. After 554, there was peace in Italy and the appearance of restoration, except that the government now resided in Constantinople. So while all this is going on from 476 AD to 554, the Albinos are just going around unchecked all over Europe, just doing what they do, causing chaos and mayhem. Quick question, Bones, free, no sellout.
Yes.
How long is it said, depending on who you talk to, whether you're talking to Indians or history, how long were the French here in the Americas before any other country got here?
Over 1,000 years.
A millennium.
Unchecked, running around, doing what they do, not really interfering. They wasn't putting any rules. They wasn't colonizing anybody then. That's the reason why you don't hear of any interference until England gets here or until Spain gets here. So it's the same thing that's happening over there for 300 years that happened over here for almost 1,000.
Nothing new under the sun.
Darian Wood says, so nobody got at them. Well, their premise, meaning the French that came to the Americas, was to come to the Americas under the guise of learning the history and the practices of the indigenous people of this land.
And some were coming for refuge because they were fleeing persecution that they were dealing with on their own lands. So our ancestors had cities of refuge in various locations where people were being falsely accused of something, or someone was trying to hunt you down. Then you could go there and no one could bother you for a set amount of time.
So not only
were remember also trade as well. Also, they had trade negotiations with different places.
Right.
And we must not forget that the 1500s are not the first time that the Huguenots were exiled out of France. They were exiled in the 1300s under the title of Jews.
Correct. BBAs.
And both times, our people, either gave them refuge or we went and got them. I know some of my ancestors personally went and got some of them. The Issa.
You don't gotta tell everybody.
Well, it's already history.
Hey,
there.
we're all about taking accountability and what roles we play.
I know,
what roles we
funny.
need to play.
And when people start talking about the Vikings coming over here, we actually helped them build their ships. Their ships look exactly like our ships because they got their wood and their metal to build their ships from us. So they were actually using Issa ships. We were the navy, if you will, of the tribes.
Keepers of the waterways.
They lived peaceful along with the Vikings until the Vikings tried to encroach a little bit too far. That caused the war and they ran them back. But some of them stayed, which are Arcadians.
Yep, that's where the Arcadians are. The Arcadians are a mixture of Isa and Vikings, and they stayed up north in Canada, or what was then called New France. New Netherlands, New Nova Scotia, and all those new areas.
75% of what you know of America today.
So when they got exiled, we helped. So it's not that they were unbothered or they were unfeathered. We knew who they were. We went and got them and we let them in. We gave them refuge. We didn't anticipate them stay as long as they did. That family member that just be like, I'm going to just come and stay for a few months and end up being a year and you got to kick them out. That's pretty much what happened. Yep.
Not only that, but there were codes for the land too. You have to remember that. Like the whole sense, like how we planted, a lot of what we did was very different, extremely different than now. So we weren't crossbreeding plants now. We weren't making tangelos and things along those lines. We had a code that we lived by. So having said that, the more you have other people that are on your land, and then when you have people taking them in as part of their family, you create another group of people.
Yep.
And once you do that, then you end up in the element where we are right now, and having to unravel what we're unraveling if things get out of balance, which obviously they did.
How many times we read so far that these groups of people, the children of these groups of people, isolated themselves and over time became distinct sets of people? Yep. I mean, we even talked about one known by the Métis that are considered aboriginal to Canada.
Mm-hmm. They're in the Constitution.
And they know they're the children of French and Indians.
So that's why the French came here and they were unchecked, because they were learning about our culture. They were learning about us. They were learning our language, and we was learning theirs. You got to realize we had many different languages because we were merchants. So if you're going to be trading with different cultures, you're going to be learning their languages. So we spoke many different languages. So at this particular time, it's safe to say, well, I already know it's a fact, just by talking to some of the tribes and actually just reading the history. There was communication between the French and the tribes. They knew each other's language. You figure, how long does it take to learn somebody's language? If you're communicating with them on a daily basis, it's only going to take a couple of years. And if they were here for at least, let's just say, round up and say 1,000 years, that's not only enough time to learn somebody's language, culture, and history. It's also enough time to merge languages, culture, and history.
And look at it this way. The father of Latin is Ladino. Ladino was created by the Micmac. So the majority of the world is speaking Latin. That lets you know how long they've been communicating with people if the origins of the language was created by the Micmac.
And then, of course, that doesn't even tie into how Ladino ties into language and in terms of being able to know who has been here and where a lot of these languages even stem from. Because Ladino, that's an ancestral American language.
The base of Latin.
And remember when we did the episode on the wars, and we came across the Micmac, and we saw that flag, the Micmac flag, the Grand Council flag of the Micmac Nation.
Yep.
So I'm gonna post it again. It's gonna give a whole new meaning to you. You're gonna see it from a different perspective now. So let me post this image right quick.
quick shout out to Keanu Keys. The keyboard of doom got a shout out from Ladarian Wood. He said, "No truth is safe." Shout out to Keanu Keys.
Y'all crazy. So when y'all see that, now look at the Grand Council flag of the Micmac Nation. Look at that flag.
Y'all don't see the cross, the star, and the moon. Man, ain't that all three sets on one flag? I'm just a saying. Looking very familiar.
See something right quick if I can. And so look at this right here. Y'all see that?
And again, that's the Micmac flag. The creators are Ladino, taking the hieroglyphs and translating them into a language. From what landmass again?
This was the North Americas, or New France at the time. So
Micmac.
reminds me of Knick Knack Paddywhack, give a dog a bone. I'm just saying.
And so
You
Micmac
know.
rolling on. Rolling on what? The river. Take it away, Tina.
Grand Rising Doodle Vision, hope all's well with your brother.
Grand Rising to James Swain.
Copper Color Queen says Ladino language search, you see Judeo, Spanish at the top of the list. I've never heard of that type of Spanish.
Aha. A span is the width. What is it? The width of your hand, or the width between your wrist and your elbow? I have to look it up. I know it's a measure of distance.
And the ish is something like.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Like, or like a man, because ish is male in a lot of languages. So a measurement that's like a man, not quite a man, not a man, but a hue man, maybe.
And if you put it towards language, you notice language don't break up letters between, English don't break up letters between male and female. But mostly all other language types do. The pronunciation of how you pronounce the words, you know if you're talking to a man or a woman, but not in English.
Right. Tells you what energy you're coming from. But of course, not in English. English mixes everything up to give you an androgenized form of amalgamated, whatever you want to call it. It's up to interpretation depending on whose hands it's in.
Not only who's sending, but also who's receiving, which is the reason why there's so many multiple meanings. Lectio de facilior.
Confusion.
You don't know
Babylon.
who it's coming from. Exactly. You don't know who it's coming from or who they're speaking to. Or to whom they're speaking. So here we go. What was I about to say? I just lost my train of thought. All right, so now we're going to talk about Pope Gregory the First. Pope Gregory had been born into a wealthy, noble Roman family with a close connection to the church. When he became Pope in 590, among his first acts was writing a series of letters disavowing any ambition to the throne of Peter and praising the contemplative life of the monks. At that time, for various reasons, the Holy See had not exerted effective leadership in the West since the pontificate of Gelasius the First. the episcopacy in Gaul was drawn from the great territorial families and identified with them. The parochial horizon of Gregory's contemporary, Gregory of Tours, may be considered typical. In Visigothic Spain, the bishops had little contact with Rome. In Italy, the territories which had de facto fallen under the administration of the papacy were beset by the violent Lombard dukes and the rivalry of the Jews in the exarchate of Ravenna and the south. So this sounds like there was a bunch of chaos and mayhem while the Pope and his cronies, for lack of better terms, was trying to put everything in order, but it was discombobulated. Unless I'm reading it wrong.
Mm-hmm. No, you got the right take on it. I'm hearing the same thing.
And it shows a picture of a melanated-looking Pope Gregory. It says Pope Gregory the Great, 540 through 604, and this is in Theodoric of Prague, circa 1363, Chapel of the Holy Cross. Jay Susquehanna doing again, dropping them mad links and bombs. Let me see. Let me go ahead and, while I'm pulling up that link, I'm going to go ahead and show you all a picture of the Pope.
Set that up, Jay. He posted a link to the book.
Good looking out, Jay. Told y'all, this chat, second to none.
Grand Rising, Celestial Love. Glad you caught that cab.
So that's the Pope. That's Pope Gregory. Not to be confused with Dick Gregory.
Dude who said Pope Gregory Hines. History of the World with Mel Brooks.
Y'all know about that movie.
Right.
So
Grand Rising, Apple Jones.
Peace out for Prince William County represent. Antonio, I'm gonna need you to keep up, bro. Pope Gregory the First. Pope Gregory Nuno, number 1. So we're learning that the rulers are using religion to unify the people. Not that they believe that they believe in the actual religion itself. They just know that it's a unifying process to get people, as Free would always say, realigned with the order that is now taking control of their lives. So then it goes on to read that Gregory is credited with re-energizing the church's missionary work among the barbarian peoples of Northern Europe. He is almost famous for sending a mission, often called the Gregorian mission, under Augustine of Canterbury prior to St. Andrews, where he had perhaps succeeded Gregory to evangelize the pagan Anglo-Saxons of England. Stop.
I'm hearing some key words in there.
Dun-dun.
Woo. Here we go. He is most famous for sending a mission often called the Gregorian mission under the Augustine of Canterbury prior to St. Andrews, where he had perhaps succeeded Gregory to evangelizing the pagan Anglo-Saxons of England. Y'all do realize those Anglo-Saxons are those Albinos.
Correct.
Those are those pale people. Remember, these were the individuals that were running around unchecked. Now they came around to them, and now they're starting to evangelize them.
Wasn't that area called Albion at one time? The area where England was?
Yep. The island of the Albinos.
Anybody who does any kind of research into any kind of religious text, they know that in a lot of books it talks about people who had leprosy will be set outside of the camp. Macro. Say if that's somebody who is in one land, you can set them outside of the camp by putting them in another land. Right?
So I remember we had this conversation.
This is kind of, to me, and looking at the whole picture of everything we've been told from every single source, I'm starting to see a clearer picture. I hope others are too.
Yeah, so am I.
This is interesting.
Add this layer to it. A lot of people that read texts where they tell you that these people's skin got scorched. Now let's stop for a second and think. When something gets scorched, what color is it?
Red.
No.
If it's scorched,
white.
It's black.
Oh, black.
It's white when something is scorched.
Oh, strike
two. Look at those colors that we just used. Even in deciphering from 3 different vantage points. Red, black, and white. Weren't we just talking about those same colors just yesterday? And how it plays into the way that they deliver the message in the constructed lectodifficiliar LD form.
They would always remind me is charcoal. When charcoal is burning, it's black. When it's burning, it's red. When it's scorched, it's white.
When it's ready, yes, and it's scorched, you're right. That's how you know it's ready to cook. Time to cook.
Because it's white. Scorched out.
Doodle Vision says it was also called, he says, yes, Albinon, and then he says it was also called Dogland.
Yeah.
Labrador, aka Dogland.
Home of the Labrador Retrievers. Yeah, that's where Labrador Retrievers come from.
And one of most people's favorite dogs.
Yeah, oh, mercy. Dogland, y'all do realize if you read dog indigenously the other way from right to left, that's God. And they try to make yourselves. They want to make themselves someone else's God. It used to be Dogland. And they the one talking about a dog is a man's best friend? Hold on.
But think about it. Before their influence on writings and things, the majority of the world read and wrote right to left, not left to right.
Dogland. Labrador. What you supposed to be retrieving? What's this Labrador retriever?
You still got large populations on that side of the world that still right to left.
That is true. That is very true.
Look, Indigenous 56A says, I'm allergic to cats and dogs. Darian Wood says, man, I got one of those. Not my dog, man. It's okay. Man, it's okay.
This is wild.
Doodle Vision said, kissing labs in the mouth. Yeah. Okay.
Oak Cliff said, laboratory retriever. I'm about to throw this Chromebook somewhere. I'm about to throw.
Enrique says, Romulus and Remus statue.
And Remus. Oh, Romulus and Remus. He's not even. He's not lying. It puts so much in context. This is a wild ride. Let me tighten up my seatbelt just a little bit. Wow.
Yeah, that crap came across my screen for a second, Mr. TJ. Lady married a dog. Man, I hit the button so fast.
Yeah, and y'all know in Canada that is legal. It's legal in Canada to marry your pet. That's real. That's some real. No, that's real. Look it up. You ain't gotta believe me. Go look it up.
Canada. Yeah, Joe 47. Thing that really made me mad, it was a melanated lady. I feel you free. I feel you free.
Ladarius says, got me looking at my dog funny. She look at me like what I do.
Oh my goodness.
Fat Copper Queen, Copper Indio, No Sellout, and a couple of us this weekend we'll be doing a pop culture breakdown on a lot of these movies and shows that have our history tied up in them.
This is crazy.
Antonio said, but this is supposed to be the land of the free. Yeah, I guess you about to be free to marry your dog if you want. So, you know.
Well, you and Fido are free to go to Canada to do that, but get from around here.
You free to go somewhere else and do that. You are not free to do that here.
Well, that
we
means
are not
look,
about that life.
That means we better get in. We better get into our counties, our communities, and make sure that don't happen. Because can you imagine? To think about. So let's look at how served this is. Okay.
No.
This is
stupid.
No.
No.
So
Hold on.
Go to a restaurant. Hold on. Can this dog?
Hold on. Let me.
Hold on. Let me.
You gonna
deny the dog?
You're not gonna let me talk. You're not gonna let me talk.
And then me at the other table.
No.
I don't have the right to not eat next to a dog at a table in a restaurant.
You're not gonna let me talk.
This is my husband. But how is it your husband know it's a dog? You know what? I'm going on mute. Y'all got this. I need a moment. I'm gonna go make some tea. I can't with this dog.
So why are you making your tea? The groundwork has already been laid. You gotta realize these plans have been in existence for hundreds of years. I know in the state of Virginia that if you know how they the state troopers hire, they have dogs. If you kill one of these dogs that are on duty, you can get you can get death.
Life in prison.
You not life in prison. You get executed in the state of Virginia. Kill one of these state troopers' dogs, you going to sleep. They're gonna put you to sleep. So you will actually go on trial for murdering a police dog. So can you imagine somebody's husband or wife who's a dog bites you until you retaliate? I'm just saying.
You stupid.
What would double dates look like? I'm just playing. I'm just
saying. This ain't Canada.
Doodle Vision says, "Ask Mike B."
Woo!
I mean, is the dog no longer subject to leash laws because now he's your husband? Like, how is this working? Like, I'm still disgusted. I am so annoyed.
I'm trying
There's
to contain
real
myself. I'm trying
problems
not
in
to
the
let
world,
come out.
and this dog, I can't. Who marries a dog?
So my advice to all of you out there who do not want this type of stuff to happen, please get involved in your community to make sure that because it's gonna happen. But you can't keep it from happening in your community. You can't keep it happening in your district. You can if you choose to get involved. If not, then there's gonna be they're gonna be married couples pooping on your lawn, and you got to clean it up.
Outcliffe said, so who's going to take one for the team of marijuana Oprah's dog?
Nope.
Negatory.
Love every last one of y'all, but I ain't gonna be able to do. Sorry, team. We losing today. I'm sorry.
This is wild. Okay.
Y'all can put that full. Y'all can put all the blame on me. Give me all the blame for that one. No.
This is insane.
Okay, let's go back to see. That's what we get. See, James. See what happens when you in the chat things work better when you on the panel. A little bit more control. So this conversation got started because we got to go back. This conversation got started because of the statement that I read about the mission was about the Gregory. Pope Gregory is credited with re-energizing the church's missionary work among the barbarian peoples of Northern Europe. He is most famous for sending a mission often called the Gregorian mission under Augustine of Canterbury prior to St. Andrews, where he had perhaps succeeded Gregory to evangelize the pagan Anglo-Saxons of England. And then Free was talking about, what was that at one time called Albinon, which you get albino, which you get the Labrador land. We was talking about dogs, and that's how we got here. So now that y'all know how we got here, let's move forward, please. The mission was so successful, and it was from England that the missionaries later set out for the Netherlands and Germany. The preaching of the true Catholic faith and the elimination of all deviations from it was a key element in Gregory's worldview, and it constituted one of the major continuing policies of his pontificate. Wait a minute. Now I'm starting to see why this would have been a problem. It says the mission was successful, and it was from England that missionaries later set out for the Netherlands and Germany. The preaching of the true Catholic faith and the elimination of all deviations from it was a key element in Gregory's worldview, and it constituted one of the major continuing policies of his pontificate. So they was coming in and replacing all. Let's put it this way. They were replacing all spiritual realms or spiritual practice of the people that they conquered with Catholicism. And there was no deviation from it. There was no, converging or mixing to make the people feel good. We taking this from you and we giving you this. And you going to do it, or there will be consequences.
Or else.
So this is in the 700s. So it says, from the beginning of his reign in 768, Charles, King of France, sought to drive the Albinos back into Eastern Europe. The Pope in Rome was also coming under great pressure. So by 768, they were trying to drive the Albinos back into Eastern Europe. Because obviously, these Albinos were a problem. That's the only reason you would drive somebody out, right? Is if they're creating a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just making sure I'm on point. Then it goes on to read, now we're talking about the Black Holy Roman Emperor, 800 AD. It says, in 799, for the third time in half a century, a pope is in need for help from the Frankish king. Hold on. Rewind.
I thought the Pope was all powerful. What do you need help for?
Big Hawk, you late, bro, but you ain't too far behind. We're talking about black nobles in European history. So I'll put the link in the chat. I'll put it in for you.
Oh my goodness. Antonio's over there whining. Antonio, tighten up.
So, the Black Holy Roman Empire, 800 AD. It says in 799 for the third time in half a century. So that means this will be the third time, because a half a century is what, 50 years? So basically you're talking about every 15, 17 years. A pope is in need of help from the Frankish king. Why is it somebody always need help from France?
But I thought they weak though.
Where's Waldo though?
It says, after being physically attacked by his enemies in the streets of Rome, their stated intention is to blind him and cut off his tongue to make him incapable of office. Good grief, they brutal. Leo III makes his way through the Alps to visit Charlemagne at Paderborn. It is not known what is agreed, but Charlemagne travels to Rome in 800 to support the Pope. In a ceremony in St. Peter's on Christmas Day, Leo is due to anoint Charlemagne's son as his heir. But unexpectedly, it is maintained, as Charlemagne rises from prayer, the Pope places a crown on his head and claims him emperor. Wait, what? Doodle Vision says Charlemagne the God. Megadon 1, you're right. They had the finances. France has always had the finances. So, Charlemagne thought he was going there to anoint. Well, Leo thought he was going to Charlemagne's son, going there to anoint Charlemagne's son as the heir. The Pope places a crown on his head and claims him emperor. So apparently this was a surprise to everybody. Jaguar says, watch the movie Imposter. That will help you see how some of these foreigners operate. And he was French. I know, right?
I have to check that out. Thanks, Jack.
So Charlemagne expresses displeasure but accepts the honor. The displeasure is probably diplomatic, for the legal emperor is undoubtedly the one in Constantinople. Nevertheless, this launches the concept of the new Holy Roman Empire. Wait.
Yeah, they had two emperors at the same time. One legitimate, one was considered illegitimate. But this is where the church made a drastic change again. The church started picking an emperor. Remember, before then, it's going by bloodline on who's next in line. The Pope tried to bypass it and picking who they wanted to be emperor. Having an ally with the church.
Peace, Copper Tone, Tony. Black Pope and White Pope. What? Stop.
I'm glad he just confirmed that, because I was literally just Googling that. Thank you, James.
This is when the hijack starts, from the church angle.
Dualism at its finest.
So it says, nevertheless, this launches the concept of the new Holy Roman Empire, which will play an important role throughout the Middle Ages. The Holy Roman Empire only becomes formally established in the next century, but it is implicit in the title adapted by Charlemagne in 800. Charles, most serene Augustus, crowned by God, great and pacific emperor, governing the Roman Empire. Upon Charlemagne's death, his son Otto became Holy Roman Empire.
Therefore, changing the lines of succession.
Precedents were set. And Doodle Vision says, now you'll see why the Catholic Church couldn't take hold in North America. Doodle, if you're able, please come on up in here. Help with this.
Mic ready for you, sir.
Exactly. Then it goes on to read, for reasons unclear, the popes had moved their court to Avignon, France, circa 1300, where they once again came under the protection of the Frankish kings. Oh my gosh, what is going on?
The curtains being pulled back.
So, question: who has the power, the Catholic Church or France?
Right.
It says, so for reasons unclear, the popes had moved their court to Avignon, France, circa 1300, where they once again came under the protection of the Frankish kings. But by 1376, the war between the Frankish king Charles V and the English had caused such upheaval that Pope Gregory VI decided to move back to Rome. Really? Come on, y'all. So this would be the fourth time that the French have helped out. So why is it that people are claiming that the Catholic Church runs everything, when every time something happens with the church, they got to go to France?
Don't it make sense now how Napoleon can overthrow a pope?
Yeah, it does.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So it goes on to say, and so things remained. Black kings in Europe trying to fight off the Albino invaders. Now here's where it gets interesting. It goes on to read, but the Albinos kept coming. The Mongols behind them kept them moving. The Eastern Roman Empire in Anatolia was also under pressure from the Germanics and Slavs. Wait.
What'd you say? Come again?
I heard wait. Double.
It says, but the Albinos kept coming because they've been trying to get rid of these Albinos now for almost 700 years. It said, but Albinos kept coming. The Mongols behind them kept them moving. The Eastern Roman Empire in Anatolia was under pressure from the Germanics and Slavs. Germanics and Slavs. Remember, we were reading about those Slavs. The Roman emperors, like Manuel I, sought peace by marrying Albino princesses.
See? All right. Now, what did we just find out? That
Go ahead.
they were mostly swarthy prior. We were just reading that yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Rising, correct?
They were mainly a swarthy people, yeah.
They were mainly swarthy. Look at the people groups you were just referring to and what it said that their royal lines start doing. If it starts happening at the top, it always trickles down to society. To this day, people follow what the royals, quote unquote royals, are doing or what these celebrities are doing. Monkey see, monkey do, for lack of a better term. It's no wonder why the face of the world looks different now. We're beginning to see what actually happened in real time. And then you can see the effect that it's had across the board. And then the whole sense of a caste system being set up for who? To help who? To keep who the head and who the tail? To keep who above only and who beneath only? Who did this? And why? And what energy were they coming out of? And what authority are they claiming that they're coming out of? Again, genealogy is super important to know who is who, to know your truth, so you can get out of this nonsense. We can talk about it all day long, but there's actually things we can do about it. If you know better, do better.
So it says the Roman emperors, like Manuel I, sought peace by marrying albino princes. Now remember, they were being under attack by the albinos. So in order to make peace, they started marrying these albino princesses. Where else has this happened?
America.
Oh, okay.
In America.
Mm-hmm. It's the same story, just a different landmass. That's all it is.
Under the sun. Mm-hmm. keep doing the same thing over and over and over, and it just keeps working. For whatever reason, people just keep choosing to participate. It's a choice whether you participate. That's nonsense.
Now add this layer onto it. This is where you start getting the reign of these mulatto kings, making it easier for these albino people to replace them because they look alike.
Doodle Vision says, you know, Manuel is not a white name. Yes, Doodle, we know. And the Darian Wood says, so they've been doing this everywhere, using the same script. Exactly.
Nothing new up under the sun.
Antonio Batiste says, we're not even talking about the theological impacts behind all this. It gets deeper. Of course it does. So,
I think you're sneaking in, flying squirrel. It's cool though.
Grand Rising, flying squirrel.
Doodle Vision says, Pikachu, I choose you, Pokemon. Anyway. So, we've already got to the point where you have emperors marrying albino princesses. Roman emperors marrying albino princesses. Not just one, but many. And then it goes on to
state. Don't these women become queens?
Yeah.
Don't a king's wife becomes a queen?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
Starting to make sense.
It says, what they did not realize was the Mongols intended to completely empty Asia of albinos. Stop.
Done. Bring it on back.
So the Mongols were chasing the albinos out of their land into Roman territory, causing this war and possibly helping these albinos. So they're dumping these albinos over into the Roman Empire. Just wanted to get y'all attention on that. So then it goes on and reads, it says, thus when the Turks, who had initially been brought to the West by the foolish Arabs who needed slave soldiers for their armies, Mamelukes, began their mass movement west, the die was cast. So you got the Mongols pushing the albinos towards Rome, which is basically at this time, where is this at? They're in France. And you also have the Turks. They're moving west. So there's a lot of movement going on.
All of them centering into France.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually forming your northern and southern French.
So everybody's converging on France, which is this time is basically Roman rule. Okay. On April 2nd, 1453, Turkish Sultan Mehmed's army of some 80,000 Turks and large numbers of irregulars laid siege to Constantinople. Despite the desperate last-ditch defense to the city by the massively outnumbered Christian forces, 7,000 men to 2,000 of whom were foreign, Constantinople finally fell to the Ottomans, the Turks. After a 2-month siege on 29 May 1453, the last Byzantine emperor, Constantine the 11th, Paleologos, was last seen casting off his imperial regalia and throwing himself into hand-to-hand combat after the walls of the city were taken.
Yeah, and like Dudu said, remember the Turks had American Indian blood in them at this time as well.
I'm scared to ask. Oh, never mind. Turkey. Damn. Thanks, Issa. Anyway.
DeLorean.
Jiminy Christmas. So, this is what I find interesting. This is how you know this emperor was a brother. He took off his imperial regalia and threw himself into hand-to-hand combat.
So we about to get it. Let's go.
He's like, all right, I'm going out fighting. He says, with the fall of Constantinople and the Eastern Roman Empire, the West was now wide open, the West was now wide open for more albino invaders. So now, what you say, Dude said that's why I wouldn't let Turkey join the EU.
No, they wouldn't allow Turkey to join.
Okay.
And that's why, again, that whole caste system mentality. See, they know who is who, and they still have like ancient beefs going on and whatnot to this day. So a lot of what actually is playing out, if you just know what the history is, it makes sense.
So they had more. So after the walls came down, all of those albinos, they got pushed out of Asia, where the Mongols were, overran France. And it says, by now, the albino must have greatly outnumbered the native Europeans. It was just a matter of time before the Holy Roman Empire would fall. Doodle Vision says, what started World War II? No, World War I.
Last of the cleansing. Tore up Europe and used us to rebuild it back in their image.
All right, so where we at? It says, at this point, we must remember that history is written only by the victors. In Germany, the Black Genocide event is the 30 Years' War. So when we hear them talk about the 30 Years' War, that's when they're starting to remove all of the Black Germans. That's when they get rid of all the Black nobles. Ethnic cleansing. Exactly, David Ford. 1618 through 1648. This war is said to be about the Protestants' adherence to Martin Luther against the Catholic forces of Ferdinand II of Habsburg, Holy Roman Emperors. But blacks, such as Duke Albert, were supportive of the Protestants. Therefore, the albino explanation of religion as the cause of the war can only be seen as just another albino lie. When the result is the eradication of one race by another, regardless of what name of cause you give it, it was a race war. What we can see is that at the end of those wars, by their own estimates, the population had been reduced by approximately 40%. Judging by the result, the overwhelming majority of them were blacks. Doodle Vision says Caucasus Mountains is where they were pinned in and got pushed into northeastern Europe and the British Isles.
Northwestern Europe.
Northwestern. I'm sorry. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Joe 47 says all truth comes to light sooner or later.
That.
So then it goes on to read that survivors were sold into slavery. So guess what time period we're talking about? Because it says pay close attention to the date of the Germans' genocide of blacks, 1618 to 1648. And all those they didn't kill, where did they send them, y'all?
Have we done any builds on that?
Yesterday, maybe? So let's talk about that. Remember, what was Benjamin Franklin's biggest beef? Why are you sending these swarthy Germans, or that time he called them Palatines, why are you sending them over here? They're going to mess up everything that we're doing, and they're going to eat us out of house and home, take all our resources, and then darken us back up after we spent all this time lightening up the Indians. That's basically what his complaint was. But if they needed...
Remember, kill the Indian, save the man.
And when they say save the man, what man they talk about? The red man. So, but Europe, like they always do, they needed France's help. And in order to get France's help, you gotta adhere to what France's stipulations are, right?
Correct.
Doodle Vision said they sent them to Americas and West Africa, son.
And don't forget the ones that they sent to Australia. Australia was also their prison colony.
Mm-hmm.
So now we starting to see where this large influx of, I'm using air quotes, slaves come from. Thus the title. And it would make sense. Because if you can't tell the difference between a black noble and a commoner who is from Europe and an American Indian, how hard is it for them to mix and go marry and have children? Wouldn't be that hard, would it? It'll be easy for them to hide if they escape, wouldn't it?
It would. I'm sorry. I am
Flying Squirrel said, yeah, 'tis the season to be swarthy. La 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 la. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Copper Tribe or No Tribe says, got a relative on my tree named Scott Redman. Wow.
Wow.
Doodle Vision says, yep, they sent them to Crocodile Dundee.
Creating another class. 2 classes of melanated people there. The original Aboriginals and the ones they sent.
Yep.
That was one of the most, I think, eye-popping things for me when we were actually going through the information on the Métis, and just how it was saying how another group of people is actually created through that process. So that whole sense of there being 2 classes someplace, and then there's another group, and then within, if there's another group, now there's 3. Now there's more possibilities in terms of to continue to create more people groups. And in doing so, if there's no sense of foundation, if there's no sense of what's natural and what's not, where does that cycle into? It's almost like that goes into oblivion. That goes past people marrying dogs. It goes into oblivion.
Just think about it, Free. You hit it right on the head. That all these melanated people mixing in with each other. After a couple of 100 years, you can never pull that back apart. That who a lot of these people were is completely gone now. In some cases,
Mm-hmm.
That part of them their history they can never get back because it's been mixed down so much between melanated Europeans, Indians, melanated Asians. They threw us all in one big melanated pot.
A melting pot. Mm-mm-mm. And in a melting pot, dross always rises. The scum, what needs to be skimmed off, rises to the top. The problem is nobody's been skimming off what's at the top. It's not enough to just be comfortable with being copper colored. There's a responsibility that comes with it. We need to set things back in order.
Jay said anybody click on that link I posted on that book. I clicked on it, but I wasn't able to finish reading it.
Or if not, I'll after the show, I'll download it and I'll repost it up on the website for everyone. That'll make it easier.
Doodle Vision says today these people go by biracial and multi-ethnic. Yeah. Well, they try to be ambiguous. Okay. Let's see. Now it goes on to read. Because now we're talking about all the survivors were sold into slavery, and those that weren't sold were killed, and those that weren't killed were sold into slavery. And they end up coming to the Americas, Australia, or they were sent to Africa. So then it goes on to read, as was stated before, the British Albinos have been the most resolute and successful in eradicating all vestiges of blacks in their country. Those artifacts that for one reason or another survived have been modified, called whitening. Taking Queen Charlotte as an example, we know that mulattoes don't have that color. If she was a mulatto, we just don't know. They even make fake albino coins to substitute for black coins. Therefore, we make no claims as to the accuracy of the pictures that follow. We use them because they are all that we have, and that were all we could find. And we have searched the world. The reason that since the albinos never make fakes depicting blacks, their efforts are always the reverse. Therefore, any artifact of a black must at least be partially authentic. Likewise, we make no claims as to the accuracy of the history below. It is straight off the shelf albino history. We have already established that they are liars where race is concerned. But when they think that there is no danger, of the race of the subjects being exposed, the tendency is to more or less do honest reporting. At the same time, we must remember that they claim that the genocide events were religious conflicts. After reading the following, it will be clear that is a lie. But what choice is there for using their material? Since the material for almost all of our histories are in albino hands, our only resource is to use their material. But use critical analysis and cross-referencing to find the truth. As the saying goes, you have a brain, use it. I mean, that's facts. But Darian Wood says, come on, they hate us that much that they made light-skinned money. J. Susquehanna says, in page 60, I believe, the Royal Court, Ennis Navy, generates and admirals, dukes and such. He says, hold on, court it. court enters, Navy generals, and Admiral Dukes and such. Yeah, I started reading on that when we was talking. Yeah, we'll go more into detail. We'll dive into it so that we can get this information exposed and set before the people. And as I don't know if anybody's been paying attention, but this is fact, because for those of us who are older, I know for a fact Dr. Martin Luther King is lighter now than he was originally depicted in 1960.
Sure is.
And every year he gets just a little bit lighter.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, but when OJ was going through his arrest and all of that, do you remember when, I think it was Time magazine, one of the magazines, I don't want to quote the wrong one, but they darkened his image on purpose, and that was a big deal.
Even look at the pictures of Mary J. Blige on the Billboard poster and Beyonce and Jay-Z and all these celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
They're lighter on the Billboard posters than they are in real life.
Yep.
Until they do something that they don't want them around no more.
Even filters and people's cameras, everybody's taking selfies and whatnot nowadays. I don't ever see any that
Lighten
make you
you
look
up.
any. Right, they all lighten you up. I don't ever see any that's giving you more like vitality. If anything, it's stripping you down, lightening you up.
Brighten you out.
Iconoclasm.
So
Making you envy that image.
So again, so that goes back to what we're saying. So it's not that we're making this up, we're using conjecture. We have physical proof that it's being done. It's being done right before our very eyes. So this is not something that we're just spitting out there or throwing up against the wall, holding a stick. We saw it then and we see it now. It's even more prevalent now. It's just that no one is talking about it. Everybody's accepting it. So with that disclaimer out there, you see, history of Great Britain, where does that take us? Trying to see how much time we got. Because now they're going back over the history of Great Britain. Darian Wood said they have light-skinned dudes playing Dr. King movies. Not only light-skinned, he was like Cuban. I said I think he was in the Shaft movie with Samuel L. It's possible.
Listen, the next remake of all these movies, best believe they might be 2-3 shades lighter.
Bones, that's something I wanted you to touch on, if you feel inclined to do so. And it touches on the thought process of, remember, you had the influx of Germans and Irish in the 1600s. Then again, there was an influx of Germans and Irish in the 1800s, from 1820 to 1870. And we had a discussion. Basically, it was a disagreement in a question form as to whether these Germans and Irish were mostly Swarthy and Tawney, or were they Albino? And as we were talking about it, you read something in the Constitution that gave you the answer. Would you care to go over that, please, sir?
Oh, knowing that they sent royalty from Europe over here, now knowing the 14th and 15th Amendment, it makes sense where it's stripping people of their nobility. Who is it stripping? The old monarch rulers of Europe that got sent to the Americas. That's who the 14th and 15th Amendment went after. Remember, you just had a large influx of people from these land masses. We talk about 15 million. Some of them would still be family members to leftover royalty. So what do you do to remove that? You strip everybody on the land of all nobility and titles.
Stop. Say that one more again, please.
Again, like we said, we know 15 million of them came in the 1800s. A lot of them would still be descendants of royalty. So to make sure they can't rise again, once they get on this land, you strip them of all nobility and titles. Think about it. If you living in America and you have inheritance back in Europe, you have to fill out a form to prove that that's where you came from. But now if you strip these people of all their nobility, all their records, they can never prove that's where they came from.
So let's look at the laws. Let's see if we can look at the laws of how nobility was treated in the 1800s.
Just think about it. These descendants of Europeans, these fails that was living in America, they didn't have no nobility titles. They didn't even think they had allegiance to the crown. So who are they talking about?
See, maybe I need to change the question.
What you say, first, always got to ask who and why. Who and why.
Absolutely.
Who did it, who told you, and why they did it.
Mm-hmm. The question always should be running through your brain when you're reading anything. Digging up
That's
sources, whatnot.
Mm-hmm. But it's just like what I read about Barbados and Jamaica, that they took a lot of these Irish immigrants to Barbados and Jamaica to work on the plantations there. Now, we know a lot of them mingled in with the indigenous population of the islands. We know a lot of Indians were taken from the mainland to the islands. But you know, when you look at the islands, you see a majority part of melanated people. Could that be because these Irish immigrants that they sent to the islands to work in the plantations in its hot tropical island sun were melanated? We know patois is made up of 3 different languages. But now what if all 3 sets of these people were all melanated? It's kind of hard to pull it apart now, huh? Who is who?
You're absolutely right.
Again, how many times in history have we seen 3 different groups get together, intermingle, and create a completely new, distinct population? Wouldn't that be Jamaica? Wouldn't that be Barbados? Wouldn't that be Haiti? Because in all these islands, you have mixture of French, indigenous from the islands, indigenous from the mainland. After so long, them children become distinctly different people.
Absolutely. Perspective.
Making it even harder to peel back the layers.
Again, that's why genealogy is vital. It's important to you. It's important to know yourself and to know your ancestors, to know your story, to know your truth, to know your responsibility.
See, we got to stop saying that the slave trade story never happened. Oh, it happened. It just wasn't us. It was them bringing all their melanated, all their criminals. It was them cleaning out their population, shipping them out over here as indentured service for resources. So it happened, just not to us like that.
So I'm looking at nobility, and it says nobility is a social class normally ranked immediately under royalty and found in some societies that have formal aristocracy. Nobility possesses more acknowledged privileges and higher social status than most other classes in society. The privileges associated with nobility may constitute substantial advantages over or relative to non-nobles, or may be largely honorary, and vary by country and era. As referred to the medieval chivalric motto, nobility obliges. Nobles can also carry a lifelong duty to uphold various social responsibilities such as honorable behavior, customary services, or leadership positions. Members in nobility include rights and responsibilities and typically hereditary. Membership in the nobility has historically been granted by the monarch or government, unlike other social classes where membership is determined solely by wealth, lifestyle, or affiliation. Nonetheless, acquisition of sufficient power, wealth, military prowess, or royal favor has occasionally enabled commoners to ascend into nobility. So then it goes on to read, there are often a variety of ranks within a noble class. Legal recognition of nobility has been more common in monarchs, but nobility also exists in such regimes as Dutch Republic, Republic of Genoa, the Republic of Venice, the Old Swiss Confederacy, and the remains part of the legal social structure of some non-hereditary regimes, Channel Islands, San Marino, and Vatican City in Europe. Hereditary titles and styles added to the name, such as Prince or Lord or Lady, as well as honorifics, often distinguish nobles from non-nobles in conversation with written speech. In many nations, most of the nobility have been untitled, and some hereditary titles do not indicate nobility. Vidam. Some countries have non-hereditary nobility, such as Empire Brazil or life peers in the United Kingdom. So then it goes on to read, the abstract noun of the adjective noblest, well-known, famous, notable. In ancient Roman society, nobles originated as an informal designation for the political governing class who had allied interests, included both patricians and plebeian families, with an ancestor who had risen to the consulship through his own merit. In modern usage, nobility is applied to the highest social class in pre-modern societies, exempting the ruling dynasty in the feudal system. Remember we talked about the feudal system in Europe and elsewhere? Yeah. The nobility were generally those who had a fief, often land or office under vassalage, i.e. in exchange for allegiance and various mainly military services to a suzerain, who might be a higher ranking nobleman or monarch. It rapidly came to be seen as hereditary caste, sometimes associated with a right to bear hereditary title, for example in pre-revolutionary France, involving enjoying fiscal and other privileges. While noble status formerly conferred significant privileges in most jurisdictions, by the 21st century it had become largely honorary dignity in most societies. Although a few residual privileges may still be preserved legally, Netherlands, Spain, UK, and some Asian Pacific and African cultures continue to attach considerable significance to formal hereditary rank or titles, compared to entrenched position and leadership expectations of the nobility of the Kingdom of Tonga. It says nobility is a historical and social, often legal notion, differing from high socioeconomic status in that the latter is mainly based on income, possessions, or lifestyle. Being wealthy or influential cannot ipso facto make one noble, nor are all nobles wealthy or influential. Aristocratic families have lost their fortunes in various ways, and the concept of the poor nobleman is almost as old as nobility itself. So let's look at these noble privileges. Not all the benefits of nobility derive from the noble status per se. Usually privileges were granted or recognized by the monarch in association with the possession of the specific title. Office or estate. Most nobles' wealth derived from one or more estates, large or small, that might include fields, pastures, orchards, timberland, hunting grounds, streams, etc. It also included infrastructure such as a castle, well, and a mill, which local peasants were allowed some access, although often at a price. Nobles were expected to live nobly, and that is from the process of these possessions. Work involving manual labor or subordination to those lower rank with specific expectations such as military, ecclesiastic service was either forbidden as derogation from the noble status or frowned upon socially. On the other hand, membership in the nobility was usually a prerequisite for holding office of trust in the realm and for career promotion, especially in the military, at court, and often the higher functions of government, judiciary, and church. Stop. So here's the thing. What amendment was it talking about stripping titles, Bones? Was it in the 14th or the 15th Amendment?
If I remember correctly, 14th.
So,
look at it as this way too. If you send these people over here, right, as prisoners, that means they've been convicted. What happens today when you get convicted of a crime? Aren't you stripped of all your rights and privileges?
Mm-hmm.
Seems the same, huh?
Yep. And that's the reason why I stopped, because I wanted to read this again. It says, nobles were expected to live nobly. That is, from the proceeds of these possessions, working involving manual labor or subordination to those of lower rank, with specific exceptions such as in military or ecclesiastic service, was either forbidden as a derogation from noble status or frowned upon socially. On the other hand, membership in the nobility was usually a prerequisite for holding office or trust in a realm or for career promotion, especially in the military, at court, and often the higher functions in the government, judiciary, and church. They had to strip them of their titles in order for them to come here and work as indentured servants.
Bingo.
Because at that time we were still under pseudo French rule, and you're just not gonna have a noble, I don't care what their color is, be a slave or be an indentured servant.
Now retie back in France, telling them that they were freed and they were emancipated, practically. Basically, France emancipated them from America. They were able to come back home.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't come back home. They get stripped of their titles, and France sell the land they living on. They become wards of the state.
Yep. Because
lumped in with the Indians.
Yep. Because think about it. At that time, France owned that part of Louisiana. That was all France. So because it's no longer a territory of France, it's not a territory of the colonies, United States. Now you have no nobility. You are not heir to anything. You are a citizen of the colonies.
So again, who was being emancipated now? Think about it. Emancipation means if I was to emancipate myself from my parents, I go to court, I get emancipated from my parents. Basically, all that means is I don't have to follow my parents' rules. I make my own decisions. I provide for myself. But if I don't leave my parents' house after I've been emancipated, what happens? I am subject to the rules of my parents' house.
Facts.
Who did emancipate again? Could it be these melanated Europeans that were sent here? They were all free, let go of their service.
No more Slavs by birth.
You are now citizens of the United States, or natives.
It's a lot
That gives a
easier
lot
to
of
pull over.
incentive.
It's easier when you lump everybody into one group. Negro, black, or colored. It's easier then.
Yep.
It's easier to design and pass laws when you break people up in groups.
Divide and conquer.
Where else did these black immigrants get the money to be able to buy land in the Americas? Remember, Europeans were allowed to buy land. Our ancestors identified as these black Dutch and black Irish and black Scots to keep and be able to keep buying land.
You're correct, Corey.
Some of
Thanks for
them
the
came
correction.
with money.
Right, because they were monarchs. They were of royal blood, so they had the money already. And thanks for the correction, David. They were citizens, not native. You're right. And could they have bought the land and allowed some of our ancestors to stay on that land and work on that land and share crops, since we knew what we were doing and they didn't, because they were of aristocracy.
They couldn't work. They didn't know how. It wasn't a part of their system. When you look back at how the castle systems are designed, king and queen living in the castle, nobles living around outside of the castle, then the common folk live further out working the farms and everything, doing the manual labor.
So is it possible that these individuals who were already they were already Christianized, right? They were either Protestants or they were Catholics. So they were Protestants. They already had churches because they came from that system. So they had this property, they had this land, they had this church. So any of the Indians that were on that land were their congregations, therefore making them what? Black Irish, Black Dutch, right? So they were no longer Indians. So they didn't have to be moved.
Change the title. Don't care where the physical body at.
So then if you look at it from that perspective, now you see why the Union had to come down and break all that up, because you had such a large number of swarthy, wealthy politicians taking over the South. That's where those politicians came from.
People adverse already in that type of system, it makes perfect sense. Teaming up with the Indians, kind of hard to tell who's who because they look alike, so they can maneuver way better.
Clandestine. And that's what anytime I start seeing all these blanket statements start to be applied, or anytime I start seeing where people want to keep putting smoke in a room when you're getting clarity, it makes you wonder, like, what don't you want us to see? Why can't we see ourselves and our roots and our origins? And why don't you want us to see others' roots and others' origins? What is it that once we remember that everything changes, why do you keep putting all this smoke in the atmosphere? It's really starting to make me wonder, because it goes far past the eye test. I have to judge everybody based off the fruit that I see come from them. I believe what you do more than what you say.
And Flight Major brings up a good point. Flight Major says, I think the melanated Europeans were bringing ships of the pale African peasants over here. That's the history of the so-called African, of the white people. Or, let's look at it from this perspective, Major Flight. Could it be that the nobles were sent to Australia and Africa first, broken down, and then brought over here? And the Europeans were brought over here and they were dropped off in Staten Island. Well, not Staten Island. Where's that island where everybody that's an immigrant gets their paperwork done? Ellis Island. And because those individuals end up forming one of the largest political sectors in New York. So I would go ahead, Bones.
How did they bridge the gap? And the gap I'm talking about is American Indians living a lifestyle of no ownership, being governed by natural law. Who bridged the gap in between modern day government and commerce? Who else could it be but these melanated Europeans? Somebody had to bridge the gap for them to be able to do business, for the South to be competitive. That's your link right there. Because it goes both ways. Our ancestors can't compete in the system that's foreign to them. They would need somebody in between to bridge the gap. Just like these foreigners couldn't come on this land and produce anything, they need somebody in between to bridge the gap. Could that be the common fight between these two melanated groups?
It's possible.
I can see it. It's interesting.
Why was a lot of these northern melanated men and women able to go to these universities if these people didn't like us like that? They hated you so much, but then you had melanated people enrolled in their universities, going back to Europe in those universities.
Perspective.
Like y'all said, when we started on this trip, and we started getting all the stuff exposed, we knew right then that we had to look at everything differently. We can't believe anything that we were told. Everything had to be questioned, re-inspected, re-looked at, reviewed. Because that would explain how you actually have a Negro Wall Street next to a reservation. Because of a system that was already in place and that they had been using in Louisiana. They just took it with them. And they set up shop in all different areas of the United States. It's something to think about.
If other groups we know in history, like the Métis, intermingled amongst themselves for so long they became their own group, we know the Southern Indians intermingled among themselves for hundreds of years. Because when all the wars that was going on the outskirts of the South, the Indians were still encamped in here. So you know you got Black, Dutch, and Black, Irish, and Scots coming in there. So imagine hundreds of years of these people intermingling and doing business with each other.
And that's where you get the story of Africans mixing with Indians. That's where that story comes from. That's exactly where that story comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had to justify a reason for these individuals coming in on these ships and how they got rid of all these Indians that were on this land to the tune of what, some 5 million when by the time the Spaniards got here. Where did all these people come from? All of them weren't slaves. I know. We'll say they were Africans. They were already Africans according to what the Albinos put in the records, the census records over in Europe. So all they had to do was just bring that over here.
That's it. Especially if you know you got 15 million people, melanated people that you done sent out from Europe, and in Europe you was already calling them Africans. Why would you change once you get them here?
Just continue with the story. Of course, Antonio wants a recap. He says
that looks more like a safety alert to me than a recap.
He says, TMH, y'all have went over a whole lot this morning. What's the update summary? We needed thread to hold on to. My brain fried.
Bless his heart. He has a busy work day this Friday.
Okay, so what it basically boils down to is what we found out is that, yes, there were Swarthy and Tawney rulers in all over Europe, from France to Dutch to you name it, all the way through the papacy. Then the Mongols started chasing the Albinos out of their land into France. They had been battling with those Albinos. Well, first Albinos were able to roam through France for over 300 years in the early 400s and 500s and 600s, being unfeathered. Then they became a problem. And then more came. And then there were wars. So now the French are trying, or the Roman Empire then, were trying to evict these Albinos, while the Mongols are still pushing them into the Roman Empire or into France. Not only that, but you got the Turks coming from another direction. So the Roman Empire, these emperors decided, you know what, so we can keep the peace, we're going to stop marrying these albino princesses to save the monarch. Y'all know how that works. It didn't. Because the Mongols was still pushing all of these albinos into France, because they were emptying them from Asia, to what is known as Asia, into France. So it was still causing problems, because you got new albinos coming in every day, every month, every week, or what have you, and it's causing problems because they're not following the laws. And now you got the Mongols and the Turks coming in and encroaching on the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire collapses. Now remember, these are all melanated, swarthy, tawny people, emperors, commoners, and the like. Once the empire collapses, now there's a new regime, because the Byzantine Empire has fallen. Now the Turks rule. So what did the Turks do? Time for ethnic cleansing. Y'all got to go. All that they don't kill, they send where? They send to Australia. They send to Africa. And we would assume that they sent the nobles to Australia and Africa first to break them. And then they send the commoners to America to be indentured servants, because they already know how to work. So that's in the 1600s. So now you got these swarthy, dark, melanated, tawny commoners mixing with our ancestors, the Indians. So some are encroaching on the land and being non-respectable. Some are So now you have two classes of dark people. Indentured servants, aka slaves, and Indians, aka our ancestors. So don't be surprised when you're going through your genealogy and you find European ancestry. 9 times out of 10, it ain't white or it's not albino. So then what happens in 1820s to 1870s? There are 7 million more Slavs coming over. This time, and I'm estimating and guessing, I would say half of them are albino and the other half are swarthy. You seeing the swarthy ones down south? Go ahead.
Don't forget the other 7.5 million Germans at the same time, making a total of 15 million between 1820 to 1870.
Right. I'm assuming that this will be the last of the nobles that they're sending over here to basically whitewash that area, aka Europe, France, Germany. Send the rest of them over here to be washed out. So the albinos go up north to join the unions, and the swarthy go south to join the workforce and to be on the plantations. Then you get the mixing and the mashing, and then the collision comes with the Civil War, where the unions come down because now you have all these nobles that know how to run businesses and get these Indians to work under quote unquote indentured servitude, and they're generating a lot of money, and the North is getting jealous because you got these aka Negroes making more money down south than they are up north. They can't have that, so they got to stop it. So you send the unions to come down and break up the workforce, to break up the labor force. Once that happens, you take over the land down south and you kick everybody out and push them where? To the north, or you send them where? To colonize Africa. So that's pretty much where we at. And that should explain, in theory, why many of us are having problems finding our family, and why many of us are coming up with Europeans in our family under the guise, at least I can't speak for everybody else, under the guise that I had white Europeans in my family, when that probably isn't the truth. Jay Sasquana says, was the black slaveholders, plantation owners, those black Europeans? Jay, I would think so. Because remember, when they got kicked out of Louisiana, when they became citizens, they didn't lose their money. They still had their money. So they was able to buy land. And remember, in order for the United States to pay for all those wars, you had to get tax-paying citizens. So it would only make sense that you would tax the people with the money. And remember, in order for some of the Métis who were part of the 5 civilized nations, in order for them to stay on the east and to stay on these lands, they had to claim what? Black Dutch or Black Irish. And once they did that, then now they could purchase land. But what happened to those of our ancestors that couldn't purchase the land, but they wanted to stay? All they had to do was become part of somebody's congregation or somebody's church. Who were the reverends? The Europeans that were already over here, that were the aristocrats, that were pastors, ministers, and in their position in the first place. Because that's who most of them were when they came here. Remember, religion was used to unify people. So all they did was they just took that whole mindset and brought it here. So, does that sound about right, y'all?
Mm-hmm. And I want everybody to think about this for a second. We hear about these albinos running around unchecked, right? Mingling with each other. What do you think the outcome of these people are after 600, 700, say 1,000 years of intermingling amongst themselves? Who and what do you think they look like? Just think about it.
I want to say correct to Ruga Cartier. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name. Ruga Cartier says, public service announcement. We are American Indians, not black, different from Native American. That is correct. But some of our ancestors could potentially be those swarthy nobles who have been whitewashed out of history over on Europe, on the Europe side of the planet.
Yeah, not to say all of them are royalty. Some of them are Swarthy commoners.
Yep.
But we know for facts that they intermingled with our ancestors. There's no doubt about that.
Not only that, but we also going to have some ancestors that came from the French side of the house, and from the German side of the house, and from the Dutch side of the house. So we all know they are the same people, but they're mixed in there as well because they mixed in with the tribes. So you had two sets of people mixing with our ancestors: albino Europeans and swarthy Europeans. That's something to think about, ain't it? Oak Cliff says high yellow and yellow bones, or high yellow and red bones. Flight Major, it says most of our indigenous ancestors were plantation owners hiring melanated European and pale Africans. Too, somehow the roles got switched in the early 1900s. I think it was a combination of both, Flight Major. But I see
what it mainly was. The reason why the roles seemed to switch, because our ancestors started identifying as these people to keep their land.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to remember, they were stripping Indians of their land. So if you was an Indian at the time and you wanted to keep your land, and all you had to do was identify as one of these Dutch, have a Bible, have your little penny loaf of church shoes on, now you're a melanated European. That's what they put you down as. That's what they seen you as. So over time, let's say if this happened 4 generations ago. So 4 generations down, them people start believing what? That they're European. Is no different on how they put this foolishness on us about being from African.
Exactly.
This rumor, this lie haven't started so long ago. But think about it. What? 3 generations down, you got people running around here hollering Wakanda forever? I'm saying, though.
And also, too, just like you have the actual swarthy Europeans that were buying land, you also had chiefs that were buying land. They got put up on game. Okay, so all I gotta do was go from a chief to a pastor, and I can keep my people on this land. All right, we're no longer a tribe. We're a church. This is my flock. They're their Bibles, and this is where we keep our genealogy at. It's the same. It's the same thing.
A pastor acquiring pasture, buying up the land.
Took everybody's titles away and issued you a new one.
Mm-hmm. So it's a combination of all this. It's not something that happened by itself in exclusivity. All this was going on simultaneously. Our people were being amalgamated from all different sides, not just from one side. So hopefully this will help. I'm sorry, go ahead, Free. You go ahead.
My apologies.
No, you go.
But it's crazy because it's almost like they're trying to tell you that it's a foregone conclusion. Like we'll try to erase everything in advance and hide it so tightly that like it's gonna really take you investing true time and energy to find your truth within this. But you're a foregone conclusion. So we're just gonna go ahead and label you black now because they ain't never gonna get this. So it's almost like they're trying to make us as though we're an afterthought when all of this exists because of us, which is uh, it's really tripping me out. It's reminding me of something that Copper says often. This is his quote, and I love when he says it. He says, "Everything that has happened, everything that is happening, and everything that will happen, it all starts with us." And I know I probably said that all the way wrong, but we
And
have to remember.
Oh, go ahead, Free.
Just remember where your ancestors' footprints and handprints are in all of this, and shake off the labels, because the labels is what makes you part of the amalgamated system or the foregone conclusion. The whole thing was to get them to mix themselves out of existence and to continue to hide their truth layer upon layer. As you get this new layer, this new amalgamation, now this can be part of your truth, this may be part of your truth, this may be part of your truth. And it's hard to get down to the lowest common denominator, self. Where did I originate from? Where did my ancestors originate from? And what does that mean? That's one of the main reasons why I want people to be able to see clearly in terms of who they are and what legacy they have. If you descend from the Nagamayas, if you are a Maya, wherever you come from, you're part of the She people. There is an empty space. There's a voided spot that's allowing things to run haywire. That was it. That's all I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna leave it alone because I know y'all feel me. I know y'all know what I'm saying. Like I said yesterday, to love yourself doesn't mean you have to hate anyone else. And no one should hate someone loving themselves. Having said that, who you are is important. Why is it important for everybody else, but it wouldn't be important for us? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make a lick of sense. And to know exactly, when I say us, I'm talking to like-minded people under the sound of my voice that know that they are Aboriginals, indigenous of the Americas. And I do comprehend what that embodies. Having said that, we have a lot that we need to do. A whole lot we need to do. So that's why I want to clear the smoke out the room. All this, well, you're this, you're that, you're da 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 da. First things first, find out so you know what you're talking about. Second thing, know what it means. If you rep this land, that land, wherever you're a part of, wherever your responsibility ties into, know what that means. Then come to the table with something. To just gather around the table and just start talking, confusion. That won't get you anywhere. How do you even know that you have the same like-minded goals or missions or values? How do you know? Just because you look like me, we can sit across the table and you could have been somebody who you had a literal plantation with actual slaves, where my people could have been people who were farmers and just the land was for the family. So slave, like, what are you talking about, slave? If we try to come together and build something and we don't have our basics in harmony, where are we going or what are we doing?
Repeating the
All we're
same
doing
madness.
is talking for hours upon hours, days upon days, years upon years, decades upon decades. Come on now. I'm not trying to be in the same place this time next year as we are right now. So first things first, it may seem difficult to start digging to find your roots, but what is more important than that? How much time and effort do people take memorizing stats for teams or lyrics for songs or color shades for nail polish? Like, so many things we commit our brain power to. When, if you just rediscover who you are, when I say everything else will fall into place for you. Look how easy this information is, like it's being magnetized to us. It's a group effort, the community is coming together, but that's forming an energy. It's a great time to be alive. I'm gonna get off my little baby soapbox. Y'all got it. It's getting late in the house. I digress, y'all.
No, nothing wrong with that. Much needed and much appreciated. It's not supposed to be easy. It wasn't easy getting in this mess. So it's not supposed to be easy getting out. And it starts with us as individuals. We as an individual must be willing to change because we've been converted into individuals.
Say it again. I don't think they heard you.
We as the individual must be willing to change because we have been converted into individuals. It's not saying that you don't think about self, but self shouldn't be that dominating thought in your mind.
That's where the term self-ish comes from, meaning sorta self. Think about it. We weren't meant to be thinking about self first. We are a tribal people. We were taught to think of the group as a whole, which is the reason why we had councils, which is the reason why the chief was the mouthpiece for the council. He was not the deciding factor. We had a matrilineal system that chose and that rose the chiefs and swapped out chiefs when needed because they were our wisdom. We didn't do everything by ourselves. We didn't come up with stuff by ourselves. And we sure enough didn't get taken out by ourselves. It took nations to take us out. So Pamela Hall always asks a great question around this time. When are we going to start? The question is, when are we going to start? But that question needs to be asked individually of everybody else. What are you doing right now, right here? Are you reaching out to the people in your neighborhood, asking them, have they done their family tree? Have they found out they have Indian in their family? How many people have reached out to us about these USDA loans and grants and HUD-3 and all this other stuff? How many people have done that? How many people have actually gone out and found other solutions? Because at the end of the day, as great as it is spending this time speaking with you and talking with you and building and learning with you, we are all in different places. So we must start where we're at. Let's not fall victim to thinking that we are going to affect change by starting nationally. Start where you're at. That's where you have the greatest power. That's where you have the greatest momentum. That's where people know you. And if the people in your area don't know you, that might be a problem. I'm just saying, might be, because I don't know everybody's situation. Do your genealogy. Find out, if nothing else, like I always say, if you do nothing else but find out what tribe you belong to, and I want to help you be as specific as possible. You should be able to go back as far as to what band of tribe that you came from. Me telling somebody that I'm Issa tells them nothing. Issa was some of everywhere. But if I say I'm Catawba Sapani, hailing out of Caswell County and Wayne County, now I'm specific. Now you can trace the band. How specific can you be with the tribe that you found? That's what you want, because that will put you in a specific location. If you just shout out a tribe, anybody can say Cherokee, anybody can say Choctaw. Where? What band? What county? That's where we need to be getting to. Because that's like somebody telling me, what am I? I go, I'm a man. I got that for free. I'm a man. Okay. Well, where do you live? Well, I live in Virginia. Where in Virginia? Northern Virginia. Where specifically in Northern Virginia? Oh, near DC. You see what I'm saying? You have to be specific. If you're not specific, then how can you be of any good to anybody? Because when people start asking you, because they're going to do their research and they will ask you, don't be caught looking crazy talking about I'm Cherokee. They gonna be what band? From what confederation?
Right.
From what area?
Right. You're going to be looking indigent, not indigenous. Indigent is homeless. You don't want to be out here looking indigent. I'm just saying.
So that's what I'm saying. So let's get more specific. Let's be out here working with these people, helping them find out who they are. Work with your local politicians. That's if you want to make some change. If you don't want to make change, you just want to have YouTube channels and get on YouTube channels and listen and complain and feel bad about yourself and go about your day, that is perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. That is your choice. But just know that's not what we're here for. We kick it with y'all. We learn with y'all. We grow with y'all. And then we go out and do work. That's what a Toxicist Assembly means. We're here to do work, not just to talk about it. We're here to be about it. So to answer everyone's questions, that's a solution. That's not the solution. But it is a solution. And it's supported by hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of proof that it works. So, hopefully that answers the question of when do we start? We start now. We start today. We start with our genealogy. We start in our community. We start in our homes. We start in our counties. We start with our politicians. And if you ever have a question what the solution is, go back to any video that we do around this timestamp, and we're going to say the same thing. Because if nothing else, we're consistent. So hopefully that helps. Ruger Cartier says gatekeepers are the worst thing in the American Indian. Ruger, you are absolutely right. That's but the best thing to do to a gatekeeper is expose that they're the gatekeeper, because what they don't want is the light shined on them. Shine the light on the gatekeepers, they'll run.
So true.
Yeah, to answer some of the questions, I'm going to give a specific example. A lot of people in the community are in situations where they're trying to fix up their homes, trying to buy a home. That's why I say again, the USDA programs are posted up on the website, and it's full of different programs that are grants and loans. Because of particular areas that you live in or live by, you're instantly qualified. But you won't know if you don't take the time out to go through. It costs you nothing to find out.
Not only that, the more you access anything that's going to allow you to be more equipped to utilize your time as you want to utilize it, that's a benefit to you and your family. There's resources that can help you be more comfortable, not to get comfortable and just put your feet up and relax, but think about how you can use this as a resource in order to have more time to find your truth. Everything that's around you that you can access, that's a benefit to you, that's been set up for you, PIH code, public Indian housing. Come on, people. Come on. We don't have to say, like, where do we start? There's so much to do now. Hopefully, I'm hoping that everyone is actually putting things into place and actually doing something now and not wondering when somebody's going to press a go button. I'm not waiting for anybody to come and rescue me and save me. I'm not a 2019 Lois Lane type chick.
And we can't.
Y'all gotta strap those boots up, get them boots to the ground for real. Let's go.
The information how to set up our schools is public info. The information to set up infrastructure to be better for our children is public info. But I'm going to say it again. It does us no good if we do not get up and start applying it. You shouldn't be waiting on no one to show you the way in the door. You take the information and you find your way in, because everybody has a particular skill set. Who knows the needs of the people better than the people?
Exactly.
So we have to go through these programs and we have to find out, okay, I see the programs right here to set up education. These are the guidelines. If I think there's a problem with the way our children are educated, that's where I make my change. There's grants in there for farms. Okay, I have a problem with the food and stuff that they're feeding us today. So I'm going to take my skill set, get with some other brothers. We're going to apply for these USDA grants, get farmlands, and in return, we start hiring people from our communities to do the work. Then in return, we invest in stores and people in our community to sell the goods. Then in return, but as individuals, this is the only time you should be that individual, when you put in your skill set to work. We are so programmed to believe we need a blueprint to show us. We don't need a blueprint to show us to go buy some Nikes, to go throw our money away to a new phone, something else we don't need. We don't need a blueprint for this. Let's stop making excuses and let's just do. These people got us pegged that we ain't gonna do nothing but talk, 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 talk. Let's stop talking and show the world we better than that. There's a program in there for each and every last one of us. But when are we going to take the time out to apply it? We can change our structure in 3 months if we're serious. 3 months if we're serious. You trying to tell me foreigners can come here, use these same programs, get their town set up, their government issue set up, and we can't? Let's get out our own way. Let's put our emotions aside and let's get to work.
That's real.
Pamela Hall says, Bones, I'm trying. Stop screaming at me.
My bad. It ain't that. It's just the passion comes out sometimes because this can be done. This can be done. I can't speak for nobody else, but I see it. I can see it. I can smell it. I can taste it. All we got to do is activate, and it's done. Matter of fact, we already done it. We just connecting the dots.
Mm-hmm. I just applied for my Dunsdom for my nonprofit last night.
Congrats.
Thank you. It's a real easy process. Also, too, the chat is available again on the forum. We had to tighten up the security on the chat, so now the chat is available. Virginia Bethea says start a public television station. Don't we already have one of those, Bones?
Yes, we do. Ain't American Indian Network Television. You can find it on the website. All those who are interested in coming up with content, who have content that want it showed on our own television set, contact us. That's what it's built for. We also have our own radio station. All we got to do is create the content. We have a problem with the images and the media that's out there portraying us. Let's stop complaining and let's change it. The outlet is already created. It becomes what we want it to become, relatives. It becomes what we want it to become. You can contact us at atauntonassembly@gmail.com. You can go to the website, reach us from the forum, reach us from the global chat at the website, or even hit the contact form on the website.
All right, it's rolling past 11. So let's let these good people get up out of here and go do something productive for themselves and their community. So with that being said, it's LJ Free. What good citations you got for the people?
What a day. What a build. Lots of digging today. I appreciate everyone who was a part of this. I love what we're actually doing, what we're experiencing. Over this past weekend, I was looking over the double slit um, experiment, and it was making me think about what we're doing and how when we come together, observing this layering, peeling back the layers of the truth, how it has a real effect that like it's palpable, like it's tangible. And it's amazing to be a part of the restoration of such an amazing people, and I count it as an honor. Chat, you guys already know, I adore you guys. You guys are amazing. The energy, the nuggets, yo, second to none, real talk. Just in closing, I would like to just remind everybody that all living things grow. Like we've heard a lot of like heavyweight type of information, and I know how that can, make you feel, but choose to be in a place to where your positivity can continue to foster healing and wellness or wholeness. And remember that all living things grow. And I say that to encourage you to be impeccable. And what I mean by that is know who you are, know yourself, and be wholly accountable for yourself without improper judgment. Love yourself enough to express it towards your brothers and sisters, and love your enemy enough to deliver justice. Remember who you are, be impeccable, be tribal. Much love to you always. Till next time.
All right. Good stuff. I'm going to go next because I know Mr. No Sellout don't like to go after free, especially after she dropped bombs. So I'll take one for the team. I want to give a shout out again to the owner of the website, realhistorywww.com or realworldhistorywww.com, because this is the link in the site that we were using for this information. If anybody knows who that is, give them a shout out for us. We would love to speak with them. Shout out to the chat, the best chat ever. Best chat ever. Y'all keep us on our toes. Y'all ask those questions. As y'all know, there is no master teacher. There are no master teachers or educators on this panel. We are learning together. We grow together. We discover together. So that's how it works. I want to thank the new subscribers for subscribing. I want to thank those that are patiently listening, gathering information, and then going out and making a difference, quiet as it's kept, in your own community and in your own household. We know you out there doing it. And whenever you want to make your efforts known, just know that you always have a place on the community spotlight so that we can share this information to let everybody in the chat know that it's possible and that there are people doing it. Get in touch with Assembly. We are here to help you with your genealogy. That's the reason why we bring this information out, because what we've discovered is it helps those that are stuck within their genealogy. It helps unlock some doors. It helps make things make sense. It helps put things in proper perspective. That's the reason why we do it. Because we want people to know who they are, where they're from, so they can know where they're going to go. That's why we do it. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're not here to tell you who you are or who you are not. That's not our concern. We're here to do one job. And that job is to help you find your tribe, or your house, or your clan. That's our job. We're also here to help you become financially independent and financially self-sufficient if you should choose to do so. We're not saying or intimating that you should join a tribe to do that. No, our motto is this. We don't need a tribe to help us to become financially independent. We're coming financially independent to help a tribe. That's the difference. We're not here to get any casino money. We don't need that money. We're here. We come to help. That's pretty much all I got. Again, thanks everybody for contributing. Thank you for signing up in the forums and dropping information and sharing your intellectual property with us. And it will always be your intellectual property. You'll always be able to access it. So with that, I'm going to relinquish the mic to No Sellout so he can give his salutations, and then Bones can take us up out of here. No Sellout, what you got, bro? And that was No Sellout. No, I'm just playing. He's probably busy doing something.
The crickets will represent No Sellout.
On that note, I'd like to thank everybody on the panel giving their time and sharing their energy with the panel and also the chat. I'd like to thank the chat, because without the chat, none of this would be possible. We'll just be, like TMA say, talking back and forth to ourselves. Also, the information, like I always say, that we take in every day, let's not sit on it and let it go to waste. The one thing that you cannot afford to let pass you by is time, because it's the one thing that you can never get back once it's gone. So let's make sure that we spend it wisely. Let's make sure that this respect that we show each other during this program, in this chat, let's start spreading it outside of this. Let's start showing them same traits, them same skill sets in our communities and our neighborhoods. Let's make sure that we take better care of each other. That when one of us is down, the others are there to hold them up. That if one of us have a need, that we all listen to help that need. Let's make sure that our children can see better examples and role models than what they have to hear and watch on these television screens and phone screens. And let's make sure that we leave a reminder that we know who we are. Not because we say so, because we took the time out and did the work and found out and know for a fact who we are. So on that note, enjoy when we kick it with the relatives. Looking forward to tomorrow's Rising Show. Everyone have a very, very blissful day. And until then, peace.
Peace and love, everyone. No Sellout said peace, y'all.